Hey everyone, so you're wondering where my friend Mike Lindell is? Well, guess what? He was actually creating the My Slipper. It's like walking on clouds, right? Don't forget to use the promo code Carter, Carter, and you will receive 40% off of your My Slippers. Your whole family's going to love it.
This episode of the Sara Carter Podcast is sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. During this 20th anniversary year of 9/11, help America to never forget. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at t2t.org. T2t.org.
Wow. I got to tell you, today is going to be a great show because I've got my good friend Luis Elizondo on to talk about the latest on the unidentified aerial phenomena with UAP, UFO report that is going to be coming out next week. Next week, folks, the big report is expected to come out, and Lou has been at the forefront of this, along with let's just name them: Marco Rubio, Harry Reid. Believe it or not, I mean, this is a bipartisan effort to get the truth out to you, and that's what we're going to talk about on the show. I also want to remind everyone that I interviewed President Donald Trump this week. Please go to that podcast, download it. He had so much to say, so much with regards to where we are as a nation right now, what's been happening with the issue with the border crisis. I think you saw the announcements that are coming out now from his office that he will be in Texas, where I'm at right now, in Texas on June 30th with Governor Greg Abbott. I'm very excited about that. I hope I'm here too. I don't have that confirmed yet, but I'm very excited that he is at least coming out here to see what's going on, and will do something that even Vice President Kamala Harris can't do, which is actually show up here at the border and do something for the American people, draw attention to the crisis here at the border. But before I go any further, I want to talk to you about AMAC. That is the Association of Mature American Citizens and a great friend and sponsor of the Sara Carter Show. Remember, AMAC is fighting the good fight against all this reckless government spending and the overexpanding scope of the federal government. And look at what's happening right now with the Biden administration, just expanding. By joining AMAC, you are actually taking the first steps to saving the America you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that AARP offers, but without the liberal agenda, folks. I stand with AMAC, and I hope you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join today at amac.us/Carter. Where do we start? Maybe I should just play a clip for you. I want you to hear this clip. Now, this is about the UFO report that is coming out next week. And the focus, I believe, of this report, considering everyone that I've been talking to in the government, as well as Luis Elizondo and others who are more familiar with this subject and know it inside and out, is that there is a serious national security crisis with regards to this. This is a national security issue. Why? Because we don't understand what is happening in our skies. What is it? What does it mean? It doesn't mean that something really horribly bad is going to happen to us. No, I'm actually very excited about this. I think this is a profound moment in humanity. I think this is a profound moment for all of us. And I know that Lou believes this too. It's just getting the truth out to the American people, out to the world, actually. This is a global issue. Because if this is not something, if these tic-tac objects or these objects that are being seen in the sky are not made here on planet Earth, are not man-made, then what are they and who made them? I want you to hear this 60 Minutes clip. This is a Navy pilot describing their encounter with these UFOs or UAPs. Listen to this. It's Navy pilot Ryan Graves.
The highest probability is it's a threat observation program.
Could it be Russian or Chinese technology?
I don't see why not.
Are you alarmed?
I am worried, frankly. If these were tactical jets from another country that were hanging out up there, it would be a massive issue. But because it looks slightly different, we're not willing to actually look at the problem in the face. We're happy to just ignore the fact that these are out there watching.
Think about that. Navy pilot Ryan Graves. I mean, he doesn't know what he's seeing. Yeah, could it be? Could it be Russian? Could it be Chinese? He's saying, yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know because people are ignoring the reports that were going to the top of the Pentagon. And in fact, many Navy pilots in the past and others were afraid to tell their stories. They were afraid to say what was going on, what they would see, what was going on in the skies around them, out of fear that they would be ostracized or be called crazy. And look, Lou Elizondo had to report certain individuals within the Pentagon. He literally had to report them to the IG because they were threatening him. They were threatening to say that he was crazy. They were threatening to say that he didn't work there. The IG report came out and, of course, exonerated Lou. And he's breaking some news here on the Sara Carter Show. He's actually going to lay out, what happened with him and what his ongoing fight with certain parts of the Department of Defense. But right now, everything that he is saying, what Senator Marco Rubio is saying, what others have been briefed on in Congress and in the Senate, those with classified access, know that there is something going on that we need to be paying attention to. I want you to hear this sound clip. This is Marco Rubio about the Pentagon report. And I want you to hear what he tells 60 Minutes.
This is a bizarre issue. The Pentagon and other branches of the military have a long history of sort of dismissing this. What makes you think that this time is going to be different?
I mean, we're going to find out when we get that report. There's a stigma on Capitol Hill. I mean, some of my colleagues are very interested in this topic and some kind of, giggle when you bring it up. But I don't think we can allow the stigma to keep us from having an answer to a very fundamental question.
What do you want us to do about this?
I want us to take it seriously and have a process to take it seriously. I want us to have a process to analyze the data every time it comes in, that there be a place where this is cataloged and constantly analyzed until we get some answers. Maybe it has a very simple answer. Maybe it doesn't.
Maybe it doesn't. I mean, we've been seeing reports that these objects have been in reports, going back to the 1950s. This isn't like something that just happened yesterday. And I'm going to go into all those details with Lou coming up here in a few minutes. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the stigma. We're going to talk about what happens now. What happens with all the people that were stigmatized and ostracized and made fun of by the government when they were actually reporting the truth, when they actually saw something in those skies. Lou's going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about where do we go from here and how does this change us? How profound a time that we are living in, where we may find out that we are not alone. It is nothing to snicker about, nothing to laugh about, because even if that isn't the answer, even if the answer is that this is technology developed by one of our adversaries, oh boy, we better be ready. We better be ready and we better be paying attention. Okay. Before I get to Lou, though, I want to tell you about Tunnel to Towers. They are such a remarkable organization and a sponsor now of the Sara Carter Show. I can't begin to thank them for being a part of this show, and I want to do everything I can to get the word out, folks. Tunnel to Towers Foundation has helped our country honor that commitment to our American heroes through action, and they vowed to never forget September 11th. 20 years after our nation's darkest day, this year, the foundation is honoring American heroes and their families, and I plan on being there. I'm so excited with my hero, my husband, Martin Bailey. We're going to walk with Tunnel to Towers in New York on September 11th. I want to help pass out food. I want to talk to folks. It's going to be amazing. I want you to hear what they're doing this year, though. They are going to honor families, Gold Star families, with 200 mortgage-free homes. American heroes and Gold Star families with 200 mortgage-free homes. Can you imagine how that's going to change lives? They're going to bring hope when it's most needed to these families and to fallen first responder families with young children and catastrophically injured veterans and first responders. I just can't even imagine a better organization, right, with a more noble goal. They are paying tribute to America's fallen heroes. The foundation's chairman and CEO, Frank Siller, who I had the great privilege of meeting, and I can't wait to see him in September, is actually walking from the Pentagon to Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and on to Ground Zero. He is his more than 500-mile journey through 6 states in 42 days begins this August 1st and fittingly finishes on 9/11 at Ground Zero. So excited for you, Frank. The foundation is bringing towers of light to the memorials at the Pentagon amid the Shanksville in remembrance of all of those who have given their lives. Do good and help America to never forget, folks. Do good and honor America's heroes. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at t2t.org. That's T, the number 2t.org. And without any further delay, I'm bringing my good friend on, Luis Elizondo, who headed the Pentagon's ATIP program into unidentified aerial vehicles and phenomena, and who is an extraordinary hero in my book, who served the military, served our nation, and now is serving our nation again by challenging us to go beyond the snickering and facing the facts about what's really happening in our skies and whether or not we are alone in this universe. Lou, so happy to have you back on. I know I'm bringing you on a week before this report is expected to come out in Washington, D.C., talked about it in the opening of the podcast. And I want to ask you right now, off the top of the show, will you come back after the report is released so we can get both sides of this?
Absolutely, Sarah. This report is, I think we're probably looking roughly 70 some pages of the complete report at the classified level. And then, of course, there's an unclassified portion that's due to Congress as well, which is probably going to be much more truncated. If I had to guess, maybe 16 to 20 pages. And it would be my sincere pleasure to come back and speak with you and your wonderful audience.
Oh, thank you so much, Lou. I want to play a clip right now, just right off the top. This is Chris Millen. You work very closely with Chris. Chris also worked as Assistant Secretary of Defense, correct, at the Pentagon, and has been adamant about getting the information out to the public on unidentified aerial phenomena, or what we better know as have known as UFOs. Listen to this clip really quick. This right here plays right into the report that's coming out next week.
You see this as a national security issue?
Absolutely. I don't know. I mean, how could we look at it? How could it not be when you've got vehicles that are routinely penetrating restricted military airspace, and we seem unable to engage them effectively? We have no idea where they're coming from or what their capabilities are or what their intent is. So it's not a threat in the sense of we know somebody intends to do us harm or seeks to exploit it. You might call it a vulnerability, a strategic vulnerability.
He says, this is a very serious national security issue. I agree with him. I agree with you when you talk about it in these technical terms, because we're seeing these vehicles literally around some of our most classified installations and our nuclear facilities.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Sarah. This is a national security issue. And let me also emphasize that Chris was not only a senior government official, but he was also a senior staffer in our legislative branch. And if there's one person who knows what the meaning of national security is, it's Chris Mellon. He spent his entire life and career in that arena. And I think it's also important to know when he said routinely, these things are routinely penetrating or controlled U.S. airspace. What's important to know is that this is not just episodic. This is occurring literally on a regular and routine basis, almost on a daily basis. And I think the American people need to be aware of that. And furthermore, I think one of the things that when we say this is a national security issue, people automatically jump and say, oh, this is a threat. Well, the bottom line is we don't know for sure how much of a threat it is, if it is at all. And we definitely don't know if there's any hostile intent. What we do know is that these whatever these are displaying capabilities that we currently don't have in our inventory. And when you listen to some of our members in Congress who've been briefed on this topic, they're coming out and all saying the same thing, that this is absolutely a national security issue. We just had some of the folks on the House side in our Homeland Security Committee that were briefed. And, they all came out saying, yep, this is a national security issue. And so I think we need to trust our elected officials to make that determination if something falls within, if you will, that purview. And it is, because ultimately what we determine if something is a threat is we have to look at capabilities versus intent. And we've seen a lot of their capabilities. We just have no idea the intent.
Right. So when people try to say, for example, Lou, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, some people who are very much on board now and want to know what's going on, and others who say, look, it's probably some type of US technology. All of this is just for show, just to, make the Russians or the Chinese nervous, to let them know that we've got some super technology now. What we're saying and what the Pentagon is saying is no, wait a minute. We don't know what this is. These have these variables that we have not mastered yet with our own science, right?
Correct. In fact, what we know, there were three options on the table until recently, and those options were that it was, some people had hypothesized that this is some sort of secret U.S. government technology, while others say it could be some sort of foreign adversarial technology, and the last option was that it was really truly something completely different, a totally different paradigm. Well, we now know, based upon the discussions that have occurred on the Hill and this UAP report, 180-day report, that the first option of this being some sort of secret U.S. technology is completely off the table. This isn't some sort of TR-3B technology that has been speculated for the last 30 years. You now have the Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense informing Congress, officially and formally, that this is not our technology. So that's stunning. So that really only leaves two other options. And the first option is that it is, again, some sort of foreign technology. And when you look at that from a temporal perspective or time perspective, you begin to realize there's really only a couple countries that really would even potentially come close to having the resources and talent to start to even try to look at a technology like this and let alone develop it, or that it's something else. And so when you look at it from the lens of a foreign technology, we know for an absolute fact in the 90s, during the fall, if you will, of the Berlin Wall and this new glasnost and this new, if you will, spirit of cooperation with the Russians,
Right.
They shared a lot of their files with us, and we know for a fact that because they shared some of their UFO files with us, that they were having the same problems we were with the exact same type of observables that we are to this day facing.
What Lou is referring to is out there as well. You can see interviews with top Russian generals or then Soviet generals who talked about some of these craft being around their nuclear facilities, correct?
Yeah, you actually had a few of those recordings on your show, if I'm not mistaken, some previous interviews, and it's very compelling because these are some of the top generals of the then Soviet military, and they're saying, look, these UFOs are far more capable than anything we have. Initially, the Russians were speculating if it was our technology, so they had the same concerns we did, and then of course, if it's not Russian, let's just take China for example. We know for an absolute fact, Sarah, that we have been dealing with these issues at least since the 1950s and probably earlier. And what now pilots are describing as a white flying Tic Tac were described earlier as white flying butane tanks or white flying lozenges, right? So we're talking about the same type of vehicles with the same type of performance characteristics being seen all the way back to 1950. Now, if you put that in the context of, let's say, China developing this technology, well, here's why that doesn't make sense, because China has their own UAP task force. They've established, and they're using artificial intelligence trying to figure it out. And they're having the exact same issues that we're having today with these UAP. Furthermore, they spend a lot of time and effort every year stealing billions of dollars of our technology to have a competitive edge. And so if they've already had this beyond generation, next generation technology already in their hands, they wouldn't need to be stealing any technology from us every year.
Exactly. So what's the ultimate, what is the only plausible explanation that people are focused on at the Pentagon that we just do not know what these are?
Yeah. Well, there are some people now that are even coming out saying, look, we cannot rule out that this is something completely different. This may be something not man-made. Now, I want to be very cautious here. I don't want to lead the cart before the horse. And I think it's important that we keep all options on the table until we're absolutely sure they're not. I think we've crossed the river already now as of this last week, that this is not our technology. That argument has been finally put to bed after 30 years. We know that empirically it's not. So the question is, whose is it if it's not ours? There is data to suggest that this might not be any type of technology that we would associate as foreign adversarial. The problem is we still need more data, and that's why this is so important. And furthermore, I think from my perspective, why I'm so frustrated, because in the latest bid by some of individuals in the Pentagon who are not very happy with what I've done.
Right.
They've deleted my emails under what they've told, I guess, some of the folks during a FOIA is that my emails when I was running ATIP and some aspects of Guantanamo Bay were not historically significant. And if you think about that for a moment.
Wait a minute. Official government emails.
Official government emails that are supposed to be kept in perpetuity, right?
Correct.
So in essence, the Pentagon is now saying, yeah, we got rid of his emails. Let me ask you this, Sarah. So you mean to tell me that information related to and being used for the purposes of supporting the 9/11 trials, September 11th, prosecuting the alleged September 11th terrorists, right? The trial of the century, and information pertaining to what may be the greatest question facing our species of all time and the role the Pentagon played in it, neither one of those are historically significant. I'd like to know who made the call at the Pentagon to determine that those two topics were not deemed historically significant.
Let's just stop right here, because I think the listeners need to understand what you've been up against. Not only you, and Lou, you're my friend, but I also see you as a hero, a whistleblower of sorts for all humanity, right? For all of us, getting the truth out. And the Pentagon actually went after you, certain people inside the Pentagon, to the point where you reported this to the Inspector General. A report came out. Politico broke that Inspector General's report, where they were going to try to go after you. There were documents that had been reviewed by Politico. It accused top officials in the Pentagon of basically debating how they were going to try to make you look like you were crazy before the public. And now they've deleted historical documents, government documents pertaining not just to your work with ATIP, but your work on anti-terrorism, counterterrorism measures. This is
right. And it's almost unfathomable and unconscionable to think about. I will tell you that fortunately, one of the silver linings in this is a gentleman named Mr. Harvey Stone. He is a senior representative at the DoDIG. And without going into detail, he seems to be doing a very good job trying to get to the bottom of this. The IG's job is to basically find whatever issues may exist and then report that along with recommendations to the Secretary of Defense. And I think, at least from my perspective, I'm very encouraged that the DoDIG is engaged in this. They tend to be, at least they try to be a neutral party. And from everything that I can assess, they seem to be doing a really good job trying to get to the bottom of this. So my hope is that in the not too distant future, the American public and our lawmakers and everybody will finally be able to know the truth. And I also hope, between your audience and myself, that I really highly doubt my emails have been deleted. That doesn't make sense. There's backups, and we have redundancy in the department to ensure that doesn't happen. There's backup servers, et cetera. I won't go into detail. I think probably this was an attempt by some of my, my former adversaries in the Pentagon who didn't like what I had to say, trying to obfuscate. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. But if that is the case, and they really did delete emails pertaining to both of those topics, one involving potentially the trial of the century, and the other one involving the question of all time, I think we've got bigger problems on our hands.
Oh, absolutely, and it's a crime. It's a crime. But
Yeah.
like I always say, who's going to hold who accountable? If the bureaucracy itself is taking control, and this pertains to many whistleblowers that I have dealt with in previous stories and working at the Washington Times or the Washington Examiner. And, when I was a print reporter, it's very difficult to be a whistleblower. But what you have done that is so extraordinary, Lou, is that you have brought forward to the public in such a profound way the facts, and you have established through the credible nature of what you've discussed and through others like John Radcliffe, Senator Marco Rubio, and John Radcliffe, for all of you out there who don't remember, but he was actually he's the former director of national intelligence, and others, John Brennan. I'm going to play a clip, even President Obama. Let's play that clip. So for all of you out there who, this is even President Obama talking about, the fact that UFOs exist.
When it comes to aliens, there's some things I just can't tell you on air. But what is true, and I'm actually being serious here, is that there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory.
Right there. I mean, just listen to what he's saying right there. And President Trump was the same way. President Clinton wanted to get to the bottom of it. There have been a number of senior level political appointees that as well have been asking for information. John Brennan, the former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, James Clapper. I mean, there is no way now, even if the Pentagon members in the Pentagon or officials within the Pentagon wanted to, that they could bury the truth now, because I believe it's out there. There's just
let's hope not. I think we every day there's a critical mass that is collecting that want the truth and get to the bottom of this incredible enigma. And I'll tell you, you gave me credit just a few moments ago for making this happen. But in all honesty, I must, if I just take just a very brief moment here, Sarah, there is a lot of good people in the Pentagon that helped make this topic one that has been taken seriously finally from a national security perspective, and they're still in the Pentagon. And furthermore, a lot of that credit goes to journalists such as you and other ones that for the last several years now have decided to take a big chance professionally and report on this topic, and also to your audience, because a lot of this relies ultimately on the public wanting our elected officials and our leaders to get engaged on this, and ultimately at the end of the day, if they didn't want us to, then we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So, the credit to that we are here where we are today isn't really, I can't accept all the credit. A lot of that goes to folks like Chris Mellon as well. And a lot of people have been working tirelessly behind the scenes. But if I had to give one person the most credit initially, right now, it's Senator Harry Reid. And of course, now Marco Rubio, who continues to champion this. And then also folks like you
right.
and your audience. So thank you very much for what you do, because we would not be having this conversation today. And I'm sure of it if it wasn't for you and a few other of the brave folks in the media and journalists that decided to cover this.
Oh, I agree. I've seen you on Tucker Carlson. He's gone out there. He's talked about it. 60 Minutes is reporting it. I'm grateful to see the stories in Politico. We saw the New York Times story, which was the first real big one that exposed. And I want all the listeners out there to understand just one thing, what I try to do here on the Sarah Carter Show. And Lou, you and I have talked about this personally when you've come over to my house. We sit down and we talk. And, what I'm trying to say is that this isn't about politics. This takes us way outside of the political realm. It's not about whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. This is about us as human beings living on a planet together and trying to understand something that we really do not understand right now. Maybe possibly answering one of the biggest questions of all mankind. Are we alone? Are we the only intelligent life force unfortunately, for some people would say that, but in this universe or in our solar system or whatever, we don't have all the answers. And as divided as our nation has been, and as divided as our world has been, I think we all need to just take a step back, say thank you, Harry Reid. Thank you, Marco Rubio. It doesn't matter what party you belong to. Thank you for taking those steps forward to ensure that the people of not just the United States, but the world, are going to get the truth. And
Absolutely.
that's what this is
Sarah.
about. That's what this is
This
about.
is a nonpartisan issue. You're absolutely correct. You have always recognized that as such. You've always championed it as such. And I think finally some people are beginning to realize that. And I think ultimately that's why you do see mainstream media finally picking up on this, because I think they've realized that unlike a lot of topics we deal with today in our government and our politics, this is a topic that affects all of humanity equally, yet differently, and yet equally, because we all live on this little tiny rock together. And this is an issue that ultimately shouldn't be up to any one particular government or institution or organization to own the narrative. This is a topic that we all should be part of, and we should all have the joint conversation as a society and make a decision what it means to us. And, my perspective is I only want government involved in this from a national security perspective. I don't want the government telling me how I should feel about this topic emotionally or morally or anything else. That is up to all of us to make that decision. I don't feel comfortable putting that in the hands of government. I just want the government to look at this and say, hey, is this a potential threat? And if so, here's what we're going to do to figure this out and mitigate it. But there's a whole other conversation here, and you've said this several times, that really it involve all of us as a collective and what this means to us as a species and humanity. And this is something that hopefully in the not too distant future, I'm going to be spending a lot of time overseas here and in the next few months. And there are other countries that are very interested in this topic. And because of the stigma and taboo, they haven't come out of the shadows. And now they're starting to kind of like if you will, a gopher poking its head out of its hole. They're starting to come out and, try to say, hey, we have the same issue too. Can we talk about it? And so maybe the time has come at some point for truly an international conversation to occur.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think that there could be nothing better at this point in time, considering what we've seen our nation go through and what the world has been through over the last few years, to find something that actually unifies us and can change everything. I mean, when we think of the type of technology, and I want everyone to listen to our past episodes with Lou Elizondo and with others on this topic, but especially the other podcasts I've done with you, Lou, where you lay out the variables, where we talk about what type of technology it would require to go, 400 to 700 Gs, right? And how does an apparent Tic Tac looking craft with no propulsion, it seems, move through the sky like it does. And so there's so many things that we don't have answers to. I really have been focused though on this IG report and what happened with you. And I, so many people in the military, and I'm talking about people who have common sense, people who work hard, people who have dedicated their lives to their country, trustworthy, good people like you, Lou, who have faced backlash when they've made these reports in the past. I mean, it's got to break your heart to think and I talked to Nick Pope about this, and he was saying that even in England, he feels horrible, but part of his job when he worked for the British Defense Ministry was to play down the reports.
Correct.
And to make people feel like, maybe what they saw was a weather balloon or, some kind of weird space gas. I mean, and literally these people were being gaslighted, and being told, no, you didn't see what you saw.
Yeah.
That's got to be really heartbreaking. Do you think there'll ever be a time where these folks will finally get some sense of justice and, acknowledgement for reporting?
Well, that's a real, you know what, Sarah, this is a question that I've asked because there's actually a lot more to that question. And it's actually a very profound question because Look, you yourself are married to a war hero. You're talking about some of our best in our nation have served their country selflessly and always done their patriotic duty. In some cases, have had to pay the ultimate price for it. You talk to people like Alex Dietrich and Dave Fravor, some of our finest fighter pilots, and they were ridiculed. They were ridiculed for reporting this type of information. But my real concern here is, what about the pilot back in, let's say, in the 1990s, who may have reported this information and now all of a sudden was put on some sort of psychological evaluation, or maybe had their security clearance suspended, so they're taken off flight status. Now they're not getting promoted. Now they get a divorce. Now, one thing leads to another. Now they're homeless on the street, 10, 20 years later. And ultimately for doing the right thing, for reporting something that wound up ultimately getting them in trouble and tanking their career. What do we do about those folks? Is there a liability issue here? Is there someone that's going to be made culpable for the years of denial, and where we've actually had people's careers suffer as a result, and now their entire lives have been ruined, all for doing the right thing? You go to the airport or to a metro station, and you always hear, hey, see something, say something. You see something suspicious, say something. And yet that's precisely what these folks were doing. And they were being ridiculed and in some cases punished for it. And that's my big concern here, because even if you were to somehow apply some sort of blanket immunity for those individuals who've been running these programs in the past, and have not been informing government leadership about it, there's still individuals out there that probably have a very good reason to be acknowledged in some capacity, because they were doing the right thing. And that's ultimately my big concern.
It is my big concern too. I've been thinking about it like obsessively for like the whole month, ever since we started talking, with regards to this report coming out. What is the government going to do to make a difference for these folks? Because honestly, for some of them, I'm not saying all of the incidents were accurately reported, but for some of them, I mean, it's very abusive. And I'm so grateful right now, that the government has come out to some extent and said, we got to get to the bottom of this. We've got to expose this. We have to tell the truth. But I really do hope, and I think it would be phenomenal. And I'd love to work with you on something like this, but like to talk to some of these folks, like the Rendlesham Forest incident, to the people that had to deal with that, and, bring them on, and some of the people in the past that have seen this, and bring them on the podcast and talk to them and give them
I would love America to hear their stories through you. I got to tell you, Sarah, that, I had the privilege of meeting a couple folks associated with the Rendlesham Forest incident. And it was only until recently, and thank God for Senator John McCain to make this happen, that these individuals were suffering medical issues as a result, lifelong medical issues.
Right.
And their government abandoned them. And if it wasn't for the courage of Senator John McCain and a particular staffer that I met out in Prescott, Arizona, incredible woman, who fought for these individuals who suffered medical consequences, and literally was able to get them their disability that they had been owed. And in their disability paperwork, it specifically says because of their involvement in the Rendlesham incident. And, I suspect there's a lot of other people out there who may be in that same boat, but never had a voice. They didn't have a champion like Senator John McCain.
Right, exactly. I remember interviewing the Rendlesham officers in 2010, Lou. And when they came to testify in Washington, D.C., it was kind of a small hearing on the UFO incident, but it was very powerful. It should have been treated the way it's being treated now. But they were able to make their statements. And I just want people to know that there are some really amazing Americans, military personnel, as well as others. Remember the 2006 O'Hare International Airport UFO sighting? That was huge.
Absolutely.
Everybody at the airport. I mean, there was so many people, 12 employees, witnessing this huge, like saucer-shaped craft above O'Hare's Gate C-17. Everyone was seeing it, and people were asked to literally sign non-disclosure, NDAs, that they wouldn't discuss it, that they wouldn't go on, the news shows and talk about it. And it was, if it wasn't for the courage of some people and some journalists, the story would have never gotten out there. So I just want everyone out there to hear what Lou is saying. What are you going to do, Lou? I heard that, through the grapevine, I haven't talked to you about this yet, but you were saying, look, if they don't take care of this, if this report does not tell the public what it needs to know, that you're seriously thinking about running for office. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah, I was kind of hoping at some point I could just fade off into the sunset, but I've made no bones about it. I'm willing to put my boots back on if I need to. This is a topic that's very important to me, and this is not the only topic. There's a lot of things that I think we as a country have, and I'm going to be very careful how I say this. I think we've become complacent. I think we have been in a situation now where we allow people on our behalf to make decisions for us, and more importantly, think on our behalf on topics that really need the public's attention. And I think it's, if I were to run for Congress, it would be for the purposes of being able to communicate with the American people and say, look, these are the issues and these are the facts behind those issues. Let's have a discussion collectively as citizens about this. And what does this mean to you? The topic of UAP is very important, but imagine an organization that would make the unilateral decision to keep this topic from the American people. What other things are they not talking to the American people about? And that's my concern, because whether it's a conservative or a liberal, at the end of the day, it is up to the people. The government's job is to represent and serve the people, not the other way around. And probably if you talk to most military people, maybe most people will tell you the same thing. That's how they feel. And I feel somehow that we've lost a little bit of that. I think we have been so dependent on organizations and individuals and institutions, not only telling us what is going on, but telling us how to think about it. I think we've forgotten to think a little bit about things. We're so used to people telling us, and so I have said for the record that if it gets to the point where I feel that this topic is not being pursued in the way that it should be, which is open and honest and fair, then then the Pentagon is not going to have to deal with me as an ex-employee. They're going to have to deal with me as a member of Congress, potentially. And why this is important is because people in Congress are already requesting hearings. One congressperson just said that, hey, look, at some point there's going to be public hearings. We want to do this. We want to crack this jar open and let everybody see what's going on. And if that happens, there is a potential that I may be called to testify. If I am, I will. I will tell Congress and the American people what I know, as long as I can do it within the confines of my security clearance.
Right.
And so, I would absolutely consider. Do I want to run for Congress? Absolutely not. I think anybody who wants to run for Congress is probably certifiable.
I think you would be amazing in Congress. I think that your constituents would be lucky to have you. And would it be in Wyoming? Where would you run? Well,
my home is in Wyoming right now. I would obviously make sure that I do things the right way. I'm not looking to derail anything or try to just be destructive. I want to be constructive. I want to help. And my hope is that we will be able to have a conversation as a society on this. And one of the things they're going to say is, well, Lou, you're kind of that quote unquote UFO guy. Actually, I'm not that UFO guy. I'm just a soldier. I'm just a grunt that was asked to do a job, and I did it to the same level of commitment as I've done every other mission. I didn't ask to be the UFO guy. I was told to be the UFO guy. I didn't ask that myself.
You got to admit, though, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Well, depends.
I mean, if I was gonna do anything at the Pentagon, I would want to be the UFO girl. I would want, because that's where I go, right? I think the reason so many people are drawn to the stories, right, is because it is a mystery, is because it tells us that maybe we aren't alone in the universe, that maybe there's more to the story about us than what meets the eye, right? We're not just here. We exist for a purpose. And it would be really incredible to know that there's something else out there. And, I always tell everybody, there's the two biggest questions in the world are we alone, I think, for mankind? And were we created? Is there a God? I mean, who knows what the answer will be to these once we figure out what we're seeing in the sky, if we ever figure it out. I believe we will. Rich brought up something. Rich, our producer, he just sent me a message. We have this like little chat room going on, and he was like, wait, you guys didn't explain Rendlesham and what the Rendlesham incident was. And so before we get off this podcast, we have to explain it because it happened in 1980. It was December of 1980. It was United States Air Force security personnel actually witnessed what they believed to be unidentified flying objects at the Rendlesham Air Force Base in Woodbridge in Great Britain, correct?
Yeah. And why that's so interesting is there were several people besides John Burroughs and Colonel Holt. There's audio that has since leaked out on that incident, and it's available. I think it's online, but Colonel Holt actually had a recorder. If you've ever had an opportunity to meet Colonel Holt, Colonel Holt was an incredible an incredible human being, and he is extremely detail oriented, detail focused. And so, basically, in his position as one of the senior guys, frankly, on that entire base, he always kept a voice recorder because he wanted everything for the record. He was very meticulous about that. And that recording of the entire experience he had when they were actually trying to locate this UAP he recorded the whole thing, and you can hear the discussion ongoing, and as it's actually occurring in real time between him and his subordinates. These are law enforcement personnel, security personnel that have been activated to go hunt down this UFO that landed in the Rendlesham Forest right outside of the military base that both the United States and the United Kingdom shared. This is at the height of the Cold War. Tensions between the Soviet Union and America could not have been any higher. You're looking at the front lines of the Cold War, where the United Kingdom, where England was really, think of this Maginot Line, this invisible Maginot Line between the Iron Curtain and the free world at the time. And so we had a lot of assets and equities there at Rendlesham, right there.
It was considered a nuclear site too. I mean, nobody's ever really officially, but it's been out there that people have said that. I mean, so there was very much an interest in protecting that airbase and ensuring
absolutely.
the security.
Super strategic interest. And, this goes back to the whole nuclear interest again. People, I've said anecdotally that we've had these things interfere with our nuclear capabilities. But, this is case in point. I got to be careful what I say was actually at that base at the time. I do think you're right. I think it's now public knowledge that there were some certain equities there that we had. But, this goes right back to that whole nuclear interest again. You have these capabilities that are coming up close and personal. And that's not the only one. I've had the opportunity to talk to many, 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 many different Air Force security personnel and airmen over the last several years. And some of these incidents are riveting. And of course, Air Force, the witnesses are then given non-disclosure agreements. Anything that's caught on radar or photograph is then confiscated by a particular element. I'm not going to say which one yet.
Right. Let me say something. So Colonel Holt, and I believe it was Jim Peniston, who I interviewed as well. He actually wrote his notes down when he went up to one of the ships, apparently, and actually physically looked at it with his own eyes and saw it in front of him. And there was hieroglyphics, apparently, or some kind of markings of symbols on the outside of one of these UAPs. And he had a notebook from that day. Well, what was interesting was they had told me, or they testified actually before Congress, that the CIA had come to see them. Some folks made a visit after this whole incident occurred, and that they were asked not to talk about it. They were asked to sign non-disclosure agreements. There was a lot of issues with that because they really felt that this was something that was so far beyond just, dealing with, adversaries, that there was something that they experienced that affected all humankind.
Yeah, these are profound moments for individuals. I've often said, imagine we're a pack of wildebeest on the African plains, and all of a sudden this giant helicopter comes out of the sky. You have no idea what the helicopter is or who's inside. Next thing you know, you've been darted, and you wake up, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, what the hell was that? What just happened, right? It's kind of the same thing with these individuals when you talk to them. It's shocking that these folks have had to keep all this knowledge inside without ever having a conversation. These people they're not only military personnel, they're law enforcement officers, right?
Right.
People that are sworn to tell the truth under oath. I mean, these aren't people that are, subject to flights of fancy here. These are some of our best and brightest, and they're telling you, look, what I experienced was nothing less than extraordinary. I can't explain it, and it's a very real event. We know that the events occurred because it's been documented in official U.S. government reporting. And by the way, these incidents haven't stopped. And so this is why I find so interesting here. There's the Chinese and the Russian governments are just as interested in this topic as we are. And so I think as we continue to pursue the truth in this, there's a lot of eyewitnesses that I hope will step forward, because I've like I said, had the honor and privilege of talking with them, and I'm hoping as this conversation becomes increasingly less stigmatized, if you will,
Correct,
that they'll be willing to share with you and your audience some of their experiences. It's just absolutely incredible.
I think it is too, Lou, and I'm so grateful to have you on the show. And we have so much more to discuss, because that report is expected to come out next week. And I'm telling you right now, I believe that this is going to change. This is a game changer for our world. I think that people will pay more and more attention to this, especially in the upcoming years. I want to bring you back after next week so we can talk about all of these details, because I know we're going to have so much to discuss. Final question. What do you think? What do you think this is all about? I mean, right now, why do you think it's happening now in our lifetime, this disclosure? And
wow.
do you believe that it will profoundly change the way we see each other and the way we see the world once the truth is known?
Wow. So Sara, that's a great question. Let me offer an opinion, which I don't like to do very often, but let me offer an analogy here. And I've done it a few times before. Paradigm moments for our species is nothing new. As individuals, as a human being, they don't happen very often, but as a species, they happen a lot. They happen when the first we crawl out of the cave and our species gazed upon the sun. It happened when our species first put two rocks together, created a spark, and now we harness fire. It happened when our species stood on a sandy beach and looked at the horizon and wondered what's beyond the horizon. And of course, a lot of people were saying, don't sail over the horizon. You're going to fall off the earth. There's sea monsters and whatnot, and large, these giant kraken out there that'll destroy your little ship. And we did it anyways. And as a species, we're better off for it. As a collective, we've learned a lot. Now it turns out that there really are sea monsters. We just call them great white sharks, and we call them the great squid of the Pacific, and we call them blue whales. And we realize they're not really monsters anymore. They're just part of nature. They're just part of our reality, our existing paradigm. And perhaps we are yet as a species at another paradigm moment. Maybe we're just standing on another sandy beach and looking at the horizon about to set sail. And so my hope is that we will embrace this opportunity as a species and resist the urge to make it a political issue. It would be an opportunity surely squandered if we turn this into a political issue instead of an issue about humanity and about our mankind. So I hope that I hope that we can work together. Wouldn't it be amazing if, for the first time in a very long time, many nations came together in a spirit of cooperation to try to figure this out? I'm not going to fool myself. I know at the end of the day, there's political realities that exist between our nations and other countries, but I would like to think that our elected officials would recognize this as a potential moment where maybe we can set aside some of our differences just for a little bit and focus on this. We've proven we can work with the Russians, even in the height of the Cold War. We had these moments where we cooperated in the space race.
Right.
We met each other over in orbit. We worked together, putting these habitable space stations up there where we had Russians and Americans working, shoulder to shoulder. It can be done. It can be done, and I hope that we can maybe use this as an opportunity to do that. Ultimately, it's not my decision, but it's certainly it'd be one of my desires.
Well, it's certainly something that I believe all of us individually can aspire to do when it comes to these stories, is take a step back, me included, and say, you know what, this isn't about politics. And I will reach out. I will reach out to the Dems on this. I have no problem doing that. I will reach out to Harry Reid on this and say, thank you, Harry Reid, for doing this. And to others, just like I did on the show. We played the clip of President Obama. I am in full agreement with you on that, Lou. We have to take a step back. We would do nothing. We will win nothing and we will gain nothing by fighting amongst each other on issues like this. We will succeed and move so far ahead as a species if we just take a step back and learn how to find commonality on some of these issues. And that is what I intend to do as well. I can't thank you enough for being on the show, Lou. You're so awesome. I want to talk to you forever. I want to keep talking.
Sara, it is always a pleasure. And again, thank you to you and your wonderful audience. Know that you all are truly making a big difference here. Congress is only taking this seriously because they know it's okay to finally take this topic seriously, because people like you and your audience are telling them it's okay. So thank you for what you all are doing as well. You're very much responsible for where we are today on this topic as anybody else. So I appreciate you all very much.
I paid him to say that, guys. I paid him to say that.
No, you didn't.
Anyways, no, I'm just teasing. I love you, Lou. You're great. I hope you have an amazing day. I'm here in Houston, working on human trafficking stories out here and dealing with that. But, it's all about all of us. And we've got,
God bless you.
Bless you. Keep our eyes on the prize, right? And know why we're doing this. So I will call you later today, my friend, because I've got a lot to talk to you about. Can I work on your campaign, first of all?
Well, if you ran, then I could work for you.
That's true. Watch out, Lou. Watch out. I'm going to be buying a house right next door to you. Anyways, have a great day, Lou. Thanks so much.
Yes, ma'am. Sara, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay, folks, only a few, maybe a week left, few days left before we find out what is in this report that Lou and I were talking about here at the Sara Carter Show. It's important. I promise you, I'm going to bring Lou back to the show to talk about it. I'm also going to bring other guests. Like we discussed, I hope to bring eyewitnesses, people who have reported this, people who we know are stable, people who have reported this to our U.S. military, our Pentagon, and who want the world to know the truth. I also want to bring people from other countries on to talk about this. I know there were pilots, and as well as even British Airways pilots, both commercial pilots and military pilots out there who have made these reports. I want to bring them to you. I think it's important that we stay on this subject, and you will see why as the months unfold and more information becomes available to me and to the public. I think this is an important story and one that we cannot forget. Thank you so much for joining the Sara Carter Show. I'm heading back out on the border right now. I've taken this little respite to do my show with you. Thank you for being there with me when I'm out there on the border every night on Sean Hannity and covering stories that I think are so important, stories that we need to know about, things that we must be connected to. Why? Because it's about all of us, right? It's about all of us. I got to tell you, I worked really late last night, and I was very sad. I'm going to leave you with this. I was out in a street here in downtown Houston, and so many young girls were prostituting out in the open and selling themselves in the night. And, just the horror of having to see how some people live and what they go through. We got to take a moment. This is why I say these are issues that should not be partisan. These are issues that are bipartisan. When we talk about human trafficking, when we talk about young children, when we talk about people being affected by this border crisis, this isn't so that I'm politicizing this. This isn't a Trump versus Biden thing, although I believe the administration is responsible for what we're seeing right now. But this is about all of us. And when we know the truth and when we see what's happening, we can make those effective decisions to change things. That's why I do this. That's what I want to do for you. And I know that's what you do for me. Thank you again for being a part of this show. Remember, you are a part of it. This is the Sara Carter Show. We are taking the story back. Thank you for joining us. God bless you, and God bless our great nation. Frank Ziller, I am so happy to actually meet you. Tunnel to Towers is an organization, a foundation that I am so proud being a sponsor for the Sara Carter Show. So thank you so much. I think it's remarkable that Tunnel to Towers really thinks about the family as a whole and these Gold Star families. What's that been like for you, dealing with the Gold Star families and dealing with the children?
We have thousands, tens of thousands of volunteers all over America that help us put on events all over. But most importantly, our big event in New York every year where we retrace my brother's final heroic footsteps, always the last Sunday in September. We'll have 40,000 people this year. And we bring all these Gold Star families in, fallen first responder families, and catastrophically injured service members and their families in to be around each other all the time. They understand each other. They're going to help each other heal. You can't explain to anybody else what they're going through. And one thing we're so proud of, which is a new chapter in the foundation, is that we're going to be building a village in Florida, right outside of Tampa, 110 homes just for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families that have young kids, along with catastrophically injured service members. So we're very proud of that project. T2T.org. That's T2T.org. It's only $11 a month. It's up to every single one of us to do our part to help those that were willing to give everything to protect us and our families.